Hey yo, quit playing.
Hey!
Quit playing yourself.
Radio UTD.
Hello and welcome back to the Mercury Morning News. My name is Ben, currently the opinion editor at the Mercury, among other things. Today I'm sitting here with my ever-present co-host Amanda Marie Maceda. How are you doing today, boss?
I'm doing pretty good, Ben. I think we both got good sleep, hopefully.
Sleep? Sleep
Yes.
is peak, my friend. I don't know what you're talking about. I actually just slept for 3 hours on a nap. I did not leave the office hours call the entire time. So it was actually really funny. So I was doing work until like 3 a.m. this morning, and I was just sitting in like the office hours call. And then I just passed out and forgot to leave it. And I woke back up at like 7. And I was like, well, I guess I can continue doing my office hours. We got 4 more people knocked out this morning, I think.
That's good. People are getting their hours in.
Peak efficiency. But speaking of something else, we're going to start off today talking about a virtual arts festival that just happened, led by A-Tech. And it was, what is it? The story we had was written by Miss Lauren Dougherty. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thanks.
All right, Lauren. So, let me in on this. What was this arts festival? What was it all about? How and when did it go down?
Yeah, so I guess as the title kind of will tell you, it's called the Social Justice Art and Film Festival. And the point was kind of to get student perspectives on some of the issues that have, been in discussion, especially in 2020, across the nation and the world. So it was kind of sparked by the Black Lives Matter protests and movement that really gained a lot of momentum over the summer after the killing of George Floyd. And from my understanding, the A-Tech faculty and staff were kind of trying to figure out what were some ways that they could, get involved and, really bring student perspective and student voices to light. And so they've been kind of planning it for almost, I guess, a whole year at this point. And this was kind of what they landed on as the best way to do that and to let their students express their voices and their opinions on social justice issues through their art and through, their creativity.
So it was kind of started by staff then as a way for UTD students and community to amplify their voices.
Yeah, that's correct. There was, I guess, a few committees that were set up to kind of try to figure out what were some of the different directions they could take this, especially, of course, with everything being online. But I know that there was one student in particular, Jonovan, who was a contributor to the festival, and his name was mentioned as someone who really, pushed the I guess administrators to go with this idea. So shout out to him. His name came up a lot. So it was kind of a collaborative effort, I would say, between administration and students. There were 13 submissions. Of course, since the festival was virtual, they were all, all available online. As you said, some were animations. There was one video game that was really interesting. That definitely caught my attention just because of the medium. There was a documentary. There were a couple pieces that used like found footage. So there was one that had to do with COVID. The contributor was in Seoul, kind of at the beginning was studying abroad at the beginning of the pandemic, and used footage from there, that she had taken to, just kind of show, I guess, how the world changed. There was another one that for some reason I was never able to view the stuff on the website, but creatively complaining. I can never get to load, unfortunately. But that I know was like a graphic design. There was another kind of animated short film. So really a lot of different mediums and a lot of different issues that were tackled as well.
You just mentioned it not like loading properly on the website. So I guess for listeners, all of these pieces, videos, like the 13 projects, I believe it was 13, those can all be found on a ATEC website page, correct?
Yeah, there's a special like dedicated page for this. So if you could just Google like ATEC SJAFF or the web page that all the pieces are found on is atechsjaff.ut.edu. So from what I understood, those will be up there, maybe not for all eternity, but for a while at least, so that people can continue to look at the projects and interact with them.
Awesome. Yeah, just little shout out, but a former DJ and audio tech of ours, Allison, wrote and directed Strings, which was a short animation about a young woman in an abusive relationship. It looks like from the credits, she also worked on the sound design too. But there's just a variety of different projects and especially different art styles. Like a lot of students seem to have really gone in with this full force, showing different passions and creative ambitions for the stories they wanted to portray. Like especially like how you said the video game one intrigued you. Like video games are one of the most immersive storytelling platforms out there.
Yeah. Do you know if in the future ATEC will be pursuing more, I guess, virtual film or virtual art festivals and showcases like this? Because, like this one, I would assume is more born out of like necessity in a sense of like having everything available online in this website. Do you know if that'll be a continuing thing that ATEC does in the future?
Yeah, so the main organizer who I spoke with for this, Kara or Apollo, she said that that is definitely something they want to continue doing. I'm not sure what that will look like, but the interesting thing that she noted was that with the festival being virtual this year, and there is just an opportunity to get more eyes on student work. As she said, there's the likelihood that students are and community members and even professionals in the fields that these students want to go into. The likelihood that they'll attend an on-campus event where the art is only visible once, it's kind of low. But with, just because it had to be virtual, because they can leave everything up on the internet, it just allows more eyes to get on the students' work. Because I mean, the flip side of this is that these projects are also can be used for portfolios, and those are the kinds of things you want to be able to show them off. So she did say that they definitely want to do this in the future. Maybe not every year, maybe every other year, but it did sound like it's something, they'll continue to pursue.
Right. And do you know if, I mean, so do you know how long this page is going to stay up? Is this going to be like a kind of like archive for all the time to to take a look back on? Do you know if
Yeah,
they want to take it down at some point?
I wish I knew. I don't. I would think that because they created, she mentioned like that it just was a lot of work, from their communications, I guess, team, to get the website up. And so I'd say the fact that they have like a dedicated, place for these, um, it makes me think they'll be up for a while. But again, that's just speculation. I don't know for certain.
Right.
And there was a Microsoft Teams meeting as well for like the night of, I think it was March 31st, is the kind of event for all these projects to showcase and explain and present. Is that was that recorded and is it available for students to watch, or can we only explore with the 13 projects on the website page?
Yeah, I don't believe it was recorded, since it was just like the one time event. That was basically a panel of all I guess, the student contributors who were available. They kind of grouped them into three different panels, um, just kind of hearing their perspective like a little bit deeper on where they got their ideas from, kind of their creative process, that kind of thing. So yeah, unfortunately, that was just a one-time event. But as we've talked about, the pieces are available, and obviously they're credited, and a lot of the artists have websites and contact information. So I'm sure if students were wanting, to learn more, that they would all be available, to speak about their projects, I would think.
All right. Well, thanks for talking with us, Lauren. Coming up next, we're going to be talking with Khalees about love in the time of COVID, and how social distancing and really just generally long distancing in general in the pandemic has affected relationships. Stick around, the millennium.
I listen to the Chainsmokers, but go online and trash talk them all day.
People always ask me what I'm listening to, and every time I say Frank Ocean, but it's not. It's Skrillex.
If you didn't have Linkin Park, you wouldn't have Brockhampton.
I love System of a Down because it's the only band that ever matters. No other band ever matters other than System of a Down. People talk about how they like Metallica and they like, I don't know, Rammstein. Rammstein is good, I can't say that Rammstein isn't good. But System of a Down blows Rammstein out of the water, you know what I mean? And Serge's voice is so good.
Every day, hundreds of UTD students listen to the same old stuff. Tune into Radio UTD. Quit playing yourself.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Mercury Morning News. Just as a reminder, you're listening on radioutd.com, or you're listening on utdmercury.com. You'll listen to the recording uploaded to there. You can check us all out at Radio UTD across the social media board, or you can check us out. Cup is fine, we got it. Or you can check us out at UTD Mercury across the social media board to see our latest stories, the latest stuff going on. Amanda, we have a mix and mingle, is that right?
We do. We are hosting a mix and mingle with the Gender Center, as well with Chi Alpha Iota, which is a LGBTQ inclusive diternity. It's going to be a fun little event on Zoom. It's going to be from 6 to 8 p.m. on Friday, April 23rd.
Okay. Speaking of mixing and mingling, we're going to be talking to Khalees about the Illinois story she wrote about love in the time of COVID, as alluded to before. How do you have a relationship whenever you literally just can't meet up with the person? How does that go nowadays in a time of prevalent dating apps and and video call and whatever else? Hello, welcome to the show, Khalees. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on.
All right, so take us through the rundown really quick. How does it go? Do people continue to have relationships through this remote time, even short-term kind of deals, even though it's just all remote?
Yeah, so I was talking to a lot of professors, and one of the weirdest things during this time is that long distance relationships and even close proximity relationships can technically be equated during this time because we are not seeing people in person and social distancing and whatnot. People that are 10 miles away could essentially have the same form of online communication as people that are 100 miles away. And so during this time, it really does not matter how far or close you live. Essentially, you are lacking that physical component of a typical relationship. And what the professors found is that actually relationships are thriving during this time. And that's because we're getting better at online communication. And so because of that, it doesn't matter how far you are, as long as you are able to communicate with that person and make things work, then technically speaking, your relationship is doing just fine. So realistically, it's doing okay.
And we did it, Reddit. The Zoomers have the advantage over the boomers that can't use technology. It's saved.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, to timeline where we are right now, the last seemingly normal holiday we celebrated last year, I think, was Valentine's Day. So it's very interesting to see how much relationships have changed since then. And especially like what you said with it's pretty much pseudo long distance for everybody right now.
So with it being pseudo long distance, when you're talking with professors, what were like the key things that help people kind of keep it going in terms of like being able to communicate online and all that stuff?
Yeah, so one of the professors who is an expert on like relationships, Dr. Prager, was talking about like there are two main things that can kind of like break a relationship or cause conflict. And so number one is like just differences in ideology and just the way you're raised and your core values, right? And then the other main thing that can break a relationship is just conflict. And that conflict, she said, is typically due to a lack of communication and just not being able to express your feelings or express like how you're doing. But because, with a lot more online communication, Zoom, FaceTime is even getting bigger because of social distancing, people have been decently good at communicating with their partners because how else are you supposed to, like hang out with them? There's no other way other than to just FaceTime. And because of that, that is like your only option is to communicate. All you're doing is communicating. So that's kind of the main, I guess, things for sure.
It's the main shtick about it.
Yeah.
You can't not communicate whenever the only backbone of the relationship is communication.
Exactly.
It works out.
I mean, there are other things too, like people are trying to be creative with their virtual hangouts. So this can also be like gaming, like playing Among Us together, watching movies together. But that is certainly, people are trying their best, but it does not exactly equate to, just like sitting next to each other and like being face to face. But you got to be creative, or else how else are you going to keep the relationship going?
Right. And then going on, vaccines out. We made it.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, unless you're a kid, and in which case, unfortunate, it feels bad for you. But everybody in Texas right now, get out, register for a vaccine. I got one on Monday. I don't know about any of you guys yet, but so with the vaccine rolling out and most people probably getting it by like May, June, July, that sort of thing, can people just kind of normalize? Like if you say, yo, I'm vaccinated, can you be like, yo, let's meet up somewhere and just like feel okay? Is that a line of thinking? Because I know, there's a lot of people that might say, well, my love language is physical touch. Ah, wait. Feels bad.
Yeah, no, that's actually another thing that the professor is talking about is that during these times, like your level of trust for someone, especially if like you're trying to start out a new relationship, like via, I don't know, a dating app or something, or just like through mutual friends, you have to have a certain level of trust with them already. Because you're like, okay, well, have you been safe? Have you been social distancing? Are you, how can you guarantee that I will be safe if I meet up with you, right? And so because of that, a lot of couples or newly forming couples are forced to kind of talk about those upfront things, like communicating essentially even before the relationship starts. So that's actually a good thing, where they're asking each other the important questions of, can we meet up? Like, are you being safe? Can I tell that you're telling the truth? That kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, couples that are starting out couples that are vaccinated definitely can meet up, but it also is like, are you lying to me? What if you're not vaccinated? Like, what if that's just manipulation? So there's a lot going on there.
Now with how we've been this long distance for such a long time, the urge to see someone immediately after you swipe, I feel like there's been building that muscle memory, I guess, for patience, and waiting and making sure before you want to actually meet up with them in person. And for sure, even if we're all being vaccinated, there still are a lot of immunocompromised people out there, and people might be on their guard if they have someone like that in their house, to continue taking extra precautions in terms of like health and social distance boundaries.
Yeah, and the whole thing you're talking about is like just, that waiting and just having that patience to meet up in person. Also, like, just is a great thing in the fact that people are building an emotional connection first before a physical connection. Especially in more modern times, right? There's that whole like hookup culture and having more of a physical relationship. But a great thing about this is that people are able to connect emotionally first before they're able to meet in person. So, if anything, I don't know if there's any studies about like how relationships now are doing long term or if they're doing better than where it was like a year ago. But I'm assuming that if you are able to like, connect and form a more of an emotional bond first rather than a physical bond, then your relationship might have a better prospect of lasting longer. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. COVID-19, the horny police lock of the generation. It's got an unlock. All right. Well, thanks for talking with us, Khalees. Coming up next, we're going to be talking to Sophia Lebel about honor yet again. This time, student government put out a resolution recommending all professors to stop using it immediately. Does that actually mean anything? Find out after the break. We'll be right back.
With over a year's worth of online classes, it's been rough to make new friends at university. To wrap up the spring semester, Radio UTD, Chi Alpha Iota, and the Gallerstein Gender Center are hosting a virtual LGBTQ plus mix and mingle event where we'll be playing games, listening to rad queer anthems curated by students, learning about other inclusive orgs on campus, and more. This event will be held on Friday, April 23rd from 6 to 8 p.m. CST on Zoom. The link to register is available on socials for the hosting orgs.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Mercury Morning News. You are listening on RadioUTD.com, where you can follow us at Radio UTD across the social media board. You can also follow the Mercury at UTD Mercury across the social media board as well. Anything you can think of, you can probably find either of us there. Probably not MySpace. But I don't know. Maybe Amanda has made the secret MySpace for Radio UTD. But I do not believe UTD Mercury has one. Tempted. There it is. And you can check out our YouTube channels, for some great video content. We've got UTD in 60 seconds on Mercury. Some newer video content might be interesting, as well as the classic pseudo stereo lineup on Radio UTD's YouTube channel. Check them out. Give them a like, follow, subscribe. The classic. But for right now, we're going to be talking with Sophia Babul about a different classic that's popped up in COVID times. It's Honor Lock, yet again. This time, it's about student government. They've put out a resolution recommending professors, hey, please stop. Make it stop. No more Honor Lock. What does that actually mean? What does that actually mean for, like, me as a student? Does that mean, professors just going to stop using Honor Lock all of a sudden? Is that how it goes?
I wish. Hi, guys. So recently, student government released a resolution that basically discouraged all teachers to use Honor Lock. So student government recently released in their February resolution to allow professors to stop using Honor Lock. Now, Ben, as you mentioned, what does this actually mean for the student? Well, it doesn't really guarantee anything. All it does is highly discourages professors, but if they wanted to use it, they are totally in the clear to do so. So this article is super interesting to write because there were three perspectives that kind of were pretty diverse. The first one is by student government, the second is from a professor's point of view, and the third is from the student's point of view. So for student government, I spoke to Kruti Kanduri, who is a freshman senator, and she basically was saying that, hey, the reasons that we're discouraging the usage of Honor Lock is kind of threefold. The first reason is that, well, it's not very conducive to the learning styles and environments of neurodivergent students. So students who may have difficulty paying attention or sitting in front of a screen for so long, it's not conducive to their learning style at all. In fact, I interviewed one student from my biochem class who said, like, hey, it actually gives me a lot of anxiety just knowing that somebody somewhere in the world is watching me. So that was the first thing. The second thing is that Kandori mentioned that it gives entry into the socioeconomic positions of a lot of students that might not be appropriate. If a family for some reason doesn't have a very large house and everybody's kind of in the same room or something, it's not very appropriate for somebody else to know that. And the last is privacy concerns. A lot of students have complained about random files popping up whenever they open HonorLock or add it as an extension. So that's kind of the point of student government. But from a perspective of the professors, it's kind of different. So I interviewed Professor Prakash, who was involved in student government, and he basically said, well, he's read all these horror stories, and he's like, it's so sad that people are having to go through that. But he was also saying that those extreme examples are pretty rare, and they're not really reflective of the entire point of view. And what basically he was saying was that teachers have full authority on how they configure HonorLock. So they can turn your camera off, they can allow you to take bathroom breaks, they can allow you to use scratch paper. They can also allow audio. So for example, if a student thinks aloud, they can allow that to be okay. And he's basically saying that, hey, you know what, if you have an issue with HonorLock, talk to your professor about it and see if they would be willing to create an environment that is conducive to you, but ensures academic integrity. And then the last perspective is that of a student. So one of the students I interviewed actually started a Reddit channel about HonorLock to gain perspectives from different people from different schools. And basically what he was saying was that, well, HonorLock, like, he understands that it's a way of maintaining academic integrity, but one of his professors in the engineering department just changed all the questions to be purely essay-based or about things that can't be looked up. So he said, while there was no HonorLock, I had to sit down, memorize, understand the content in a way that actually helped me learn it better. So that was kind of his perspective. And a lot of the student government body is saying, hey, why don't we just switch to essays? Like NYU has completely switched to essays and projects instead of multiple choice questions, so they can't be looked up.
It's really interesting to see that, because also some professors have just gone the route of, you know what, man, whatever, he's gonna have it anyway. Open note,
Yes.
open book test, just get it done, man.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, people still, I don't know, I find it really funny that people, including myself, I can manage to do bad on them anyway. Like, if you don't know the content, sometimes
Yes.
it's just doomed, right? I came in unprepared for a test. It might have been open note. I definitely still got a 76 on that test, bro. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't like it wasn't even like that much of a factor, because like, at the end of the day, if you're just not studying, it's like, what can you really do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you don't know the content, you won't be able to spend that hour and 50 minutes to look at everything individually and then answer the questions. It's more like having notes with an exam provides that supplemental information, like especially with higher level STEM classes. Having all those equations open and maybe like a general reminder what each variable means and where to use it can be like especially helpful, but it's that content that you still need to understand before you go into that test to achieve A-level success.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's really funny that you guys mentioned that, because I've always kind of seen like open book tests as kind of a false sense of security. If it's formulas, I feel like it's like something different. But if it's like actual, like, hey, it's like biology, right? Like it's actual memorization of facts, even if it's open book and you're able to use your notes and stuff, it's also like, wouldn't it just be easier and beneficial for the student to know that information before going in? Because then you spend so much time just looking through your notes and it's like, oh crap, like I don't have time to check and stuff like that,
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Looping back, I guess, the first question I had. What does this actually mean? Does it actually mean anything? All this talk?
Well, I mean, it's a discussion that has started about something that students feel very, very strongly about.
I don't know. Was it started here? I feel like we already started this discussion.
Yeah, I think,
I'm pretty sure it's been an ongoing discussion for a while now. So this is like, what's the end path here? as well. Because like we're also going back presumably to school in the fall. That's the plan of the university. And then this like just actually doesn't matter, you know?
Yeah. I think you're right. I think we're coming to the end of this conversation in terms of honor lock, and I think that um, because during COVID, because obviously we switched to a completely online format, it was just like really, really difficult for students to navigate that. And yeah, as we come to an end, probably sometime soon, especially in the fall when we go back, I think though it might be a conversation that starts up again, just because even though students are physically in class, there are still online courses that are offered. So if a student were to opt for one of those, then the conversation might kind of get aggravated again. But yeah, I mean, I think in terms of the gist of honor lock and the different feelings around it, I think it was an important discussion, though. I think that it brought to light a very important aspect of how to measure academic integrity, right? Like, how do you actually do that from home? And how do you do it in a way that really doesn't interfere with somebody's, personal life in terms of what you can see in their camera or their different types of neurological needs? And I think that, it was an interesting conversation. But yeah, I think we're coming to the end of it. And I think it brought about a lot of student voices that we typically don't hear. So I thought that was actually pretty cool.
I agree. I don't want to completely say like it's useless, but
Yeah.
we have 1 month of this semester left plus finals, so it might change one teacher's decision on how to conduct that test, and that could mean a lot to a student, even if it's like a small amount.
Yeah, exactly.
I really hope that this conversation turns into something more discussing the format of exams in general, because I think we should shift more to providing people to be able to bring in like a sheet of notes or have more open note exams and put more of an emphasis on the conceptual concepts rather than a student memorizing all these equations because they know it's going to show up at one point in an exam.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that especially the conversation, especially in a STEM school, right? Like so many tests that we take are multiple choice, but like NYU, if we were to switch to a completely essay/project based course, then it would be really interesting to see and to measure like how a student individually thinks, right? Like even if it's a multiple choice exam in class, obviously like physically in class, obviously that is, the score that you get is dependent on how much you studied probably. But when it comes to essays and stuff like that can be done virtually, and they go through like that plagiarism check, I feel like that specifically is a great way to measure individual skill and integrity and things like that. But I do get that that's hard in a STEM setting. But yeah, I think it would be cool to switch to different formats that are conducive to everybody.
Earlier, when that professor was talking about, neurodivergent students and students with like anxiety being like rare cases, is there a setting in honor lock where you can let one student have extra or less, in this case, restrictions or alter it?
That's a good question. I think that actually might be possible. I don't know the answer to that for sure, but I do know that, for example, if one student, I guess from what I heard from the professor, it sounded like you could configure it for specific students. But I think what teachers often do is they make it the same for everybody, thinking that everybody, it needs to be equal across the board. But in the spirit of being equal, it actually becomes very unfair because of those neurodivergent needs that are different amongst people. So that's a great question. I don't think I totally know the answer to that, but I think it would be one worth figuring out.
Yeah, for sure, especially if that's listed as the resolution in that case.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for talking with us, Sophia. Discussing the honor lock topic yet again. It's like it might as well be our rehash for the show. It's just the running gag of honor lock. Just once again, what are the alternatives? What can we do instead? But so it goes. Thanks for talking with us.
Hey y'all, this is Amanda, and you're listening to Mercury Morning News here on RadioUTD.com. Before we go into the music news section, just want to remind y'all to follow Radio UTD and UTD the Mercury across the board on socials. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. I don't believe Mercury has a Twitch, but radio does for live stream concerts and events in the future. And for now, also just a quick reminder that the programming season is ending for spring for Radio UTD. So if you're interested in becoming a DJ in the fall, those applications will open soon, as well as blogger applications being open all year round. You can check out those forms on radioutd.com. Hey y'all! Recently we interviewed Jason Bobadilla, also known in the local music community as Ariel in the Culture. Before becoming a solo act, Ariel and the Culture was a group of musicians that Radio UTD recorded a pseudo-stereo session with back in 2019. Time-wise for this interview, it was conducted a few days after Push to Start released and a few days before the Push to Start music video released on YouTube. Hope y'all enjoy. I believe now, Jason, you are a kind of a solo act, but we met you previously as Ariel in the Culture.
Correct. It was Ariel in the Culture. And then COVID hit and a lot of things changed. Some for the better, some for the worse for everyone, I'm sure. Live music in general. So things shifted and then I started really enjoying working myself and I was able to look a little deeper and make all the decisions instead of just some of them because I loved everyone in Ariel in the Culture when it was a group, but I'm so close with and good with those people. But it's just, the direction I wanted to go into.
Yeah, I mean, it's still technically like Ariel and the Culture, but just as a solo. It's just you right now in terms of so that gives you like full control. Like how you said, sometimes people kind of just drift in terms of how they want to pursue their music and their talent. And especially with the pandemic, like I can't imagine how meeting up and then individuals, different circumstances with that as well.
Yeah, there was very apparent the day before the lockdowns happened, or never was a lockdown, but you know what I mean. Everything closed. I think it was considered like the 15th of March or something like that, or whenever the day was. That day, we actually had a show at Club Dada in Deep Ellum with a Danny Bonilla and a couple other people from Luna Luna, and then a couple other people, and we never played the show. And we never were. It was just a crazy day, and that kind of just felt like a big like slap in the face with everything happening. It kind of felt like a sign. It was just very weird and almost like a movie, because like nobody ever announced the show wasn't happening. The entire like city or state or whatever went into like nothing that's not essential. So I just kind of killed live music on the spot. So it's been different. Pretty difficult.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I guess different experience, but like we had DJs, that were going to concerts that week and then all of a sudden just dropped. A lot of concerts, just had to get canceled, or people, were hopeful and they were just, postponing it until like fall, or like, then postponing it till spring, and it's still happening, which it's great to be hopeful, but it's just how things have turned out. So.
Yeah, it's really sad because a lot of people lost their jobs and lost their careers and lost their momentum. I think I lost a lot of momentum, and it was definitely a kick in the stomach. About 3 weeks before the lockdowns happened, we had just played at the Granada Theater. We opened up the Central Track show. It was a sold out show at the Granada Theater, and it was the biggest show I played at that point. It was like 2,000 something, I don't know, plus people, and it was amazing, and it was a great night. And but kind of felt like a stamp, or like a stamp, like, hey, this is it, this chapter's over, because that was like the last real show we had. And so like you kind of like on reflection, you know what I mean? You're just like, oh, that was a fitting end to that era of it. So
a nice way to go out and have a really
I don't have any regrets. I don't have any regrets about it. Mm-hmm.
That's great to hear. So I guess it seems like there's been a lot of fluctuating emotions. I mean, a lot of people have gone through that with what's happened in the past year. Did you say that kind of reflected your artistic vision and your ability to express yourself musically throughout this year?
Yeah, 100%. That's a great question. So, I mean, when there was that point, I couldn't even see my partner, who she lived in San Antonio at the time, or still in San Antonio, and I was in Dallas. And so, I mean, we would see each other every couple of weeks. It wasn't a big deal. But for me, that was like the biggest slap, when I wouldn't see her for 3 months at the beginning of the pandemic. And I was like, if I can't even see them, I can't see anybody. Because you didn't, at the beginning of the pandemic, the people were washing their groceries and all that kind of stuff, or I was at least, and not anymore because things have changed. But so you really just couldn't see anybody, and so I was just stuck in the apartment and the whole, like, all day long for months on end. And so you just drive yourself crazy. And I didn't even make any music. Like, it was just for me, it was just like an energy suck the first 2 months or so. I wasn't creative at all, because it just felt like live music died overnight. And at the time, I don't know how it was for everybody else, but like, it didn't look like it was coming back in the foreseeable future. Now, finally, we see like a light and everything, but at the time, I didn't know what was going on. So it was really hard. And so that's why I really need to focus on myself before I, focus on trying to keep running a band and a group. So that's how it was for me, at least.
Right. Well, I hope it seems like you're in a better place with.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It's just, yeah.
It's really, it's a lot better place now, thankfully.
Yeah. It's rough, but it also helps you appreciate when you have those moments of, like, pure passion, creativity, and happiness.
It made the smaller things feel a lot bigger. Just like going to shows and loading out all the equipment, which is usually a pain in the ass. I started to miss it sometime last year, and I was like, oh, that's not going down bad. So
that concert euphoria. People have been able to do virtual concerts, and that's been great, but it still isn't kind of the same as that full experience.
No, it just can't replace it. It's really hard to replace the sweating bodies of people pushed together, listen to loud music with bass that's way too loud. So it's just hard to replicate. I do miss it. I'm glad, like I said, I don't know if a lot of people can say this, and I'm not saying this in like a retrospective like anybody else who had a very terrible year, because I had my own bad parts of the year too. But in retrospect, I'm glad it happened for me, because I did a lot of self-reflection. Everyone did like the working out. I lost like 20 pounds, 30 pounds, worked out, did the whole thing, and I just like bettered myself through the whole process. And now I'm grateful for it, but at the time it was so hard.
Yeah, but it's also sometimes these hard moments, or these feelings of intense pain, that like push you to really do that self-reflection and take those actions to better yourself or your friends, or like your ambitions in the long term, even though it is hard in the moment.
Yeah, it made me appreciate everyone, and all the group, and everyone who was in the group and everything. And I never like sent out an announcement saying that things were over, because things are always open-ended on my end as of right now. Like right now, I'm a solo artist, but I don't know how things can change in a year, 6 months, 10 years. I don't know how long it'll keep going, but it'll always be open-ended to me. But right now, I think I'm working best as a solo artist, and it's definitely something that I needed to reflect on and work on and make better music. And so as soon as I feel like my music's gotten a lot better too, as it should. So yeah.
Yeah, to talk on that, it's like the vibe very much changed between that previous album y'all released in, I think, 2018, 2019 with Dame to Amor, which released like later 2020. The genres between those like were very very very.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So can you I guess tell us how that kind of twist happened, and now with Push to Start, it feels like it kind of jumped again, or if you're just exploring different avenues.
That's amazing. You're the first person I've talked to since Push to Start came out, because it was less than a week ago. So that's exactly what I wanted to hear. I've had a bunch of people I'm talking to soon, but you're the first one, so I'm glad you said that. There was a point where I heard a bunch. I feel like I was hitting a ceiling with Aerial Only Culture being a group. You know what I mean? I was like, I'm only getting so far doing this kind of thing, making this kind of music. And Dame to Amor was actually an accident.
Ooh, what a cliffhanger. To listen to the rest of this interview or read it, the premiere of the full interview is going to be this Friday at 9 p.m. Central Time on both our tuner page, radioutd.com/tuner, as well as on our YouTube channel for the video form of this interview. The transcript will be available on our blog next week, if not by this weekend.